Give me a sister, I can't resist her. Red beans and rice didn't miss her. Sorry for subjecting you to my rapping. That is my favorite part of Baby Got Back because I love red beans and rice and it never misses me. So I like to sing it anytime I make this. So I started off with a pound of red kidney beans and soak it for overnight. Then drain the water. This is very important. Drain that soaked bean stinky water and then add more water to the pot. This was 8 cups added to my pot, and then 2 tablespoons of canola oil. This recipe for red beans and rice can be made vegan if you omit the sausage or if you use vegan sausage. I tried making this with vegan sausage about 10 years ago, and I don't remember what brand I purchased. There was literally one grocery store in the entire parish I lived in, because this was Louisiana. We have parishes, not counties. And one store sold vegan food 10 years ago in Louisiana. So you can imagine how hard it is to not eat meat in that state. It basically doesn't happen. And the sausage I bought was not very good. I think they make better versions now. I have read that Polish sausage, I think, is pork-based, and a vegan Polish sausage might work for this. So I happen to also be wearing my UL Lafayette Ragin' Cajun shirt and my fleur-de-lis necklace when I made this. It was not planned, so I wanted to show you that. I got this recipe, I think, originally from a church cookbook called Taste and See from, I will tell you the church. It was called Sacred Heart of Jesus on the Teche in New Iberia, Louisiana. So, I don't have that book anymore, so I can't credit the original chef, but I have been making this particular version of red beans and rice for probably 20 years. So, I'm calling it my recipe now. So, once you add the water to the pot, the 8 cups of water, you'll add 2 tablespoons of an oil to help the beans kind of thicken, and then you'll take half an onion. I always use a white onion. The recipe probably originally called for a whole onion, but I always find that to be just too much onion for me. So I dice up half an onion and I'm adding that to the pot. And you're going to want to boil this for a while. These beans have been soaked overnight but not cooked yet. Some people make this recipe with canned kidney beans. I've never bought canned kidney beans in my life because this is the only thing I ever make with kidney beans. And I think canned kidney beans might not be, what do you call it, the bean water, or I guess it's aquafaba, might not be thick enough in the canned beans. So I do suggest making this from dry beans. Then you're going to take 1 green bell pepper, remove the center, and dice that up and add that to the pot. So in case you didn't pick up on it earlier, I am an authentic Cajun. My grandmother had a Cajun last name, or her maiden name was Cajun. Her married last name was German. And I grew up in the area of Louisiana where Tabasco sauce is made, so I consider this to be an authentic Cajun recipe. However, I don't use something called the Holy Trinity. When you're making Cajun food, the Holy Trinity is a collection of, I guess, spices or vegetables. It's onions, celery, and garlic, if I'm not mistaken. I should have looked it up before I mentioned it to you. I don't like celery, and when I have bought it, it usually only calls for 1 stalk, and the rest of it goes to waste. So I just decided to omit that. So it looks like the Trinity is an onion, a bell pepper, and celery. And I changed it from celery to, as you see here, garlic. I believe a lot of people use garlic in Cajun cooking. There is a little bit of Italian influence down there too, not a ton, but I don't know, is garlic Italian, or do I just make it with garlic because I'm Italian too? I don't know. So 2 cloves of garlic, mince that, add that to the pot. If you want to do a Holy Trinity, you can. I honestly don't think the celery does celery even taste like a flavor? I don't think it does. So that's another reason why I'm not interested in using it. It's mostly for the waste though. I did, when I was in college, buy a whole thing of celery and pull off one stalk and use it to make this, this Cajun food. And then I was like, well, good grief, my celery is going bad in a week. And it takes me longer than that to finish all this red beans and rice. This much red beans and rice will probably serve 10 or more. I would say 10 to be on the safe side. 10 servings. So when you decide when you're finished putting in the vegetables, let it boil for an hour. Cover it, but vent it like I have, because that is important to not have the beans boil over. And so right now, while this is cooking and the beans are boiling, I'm going to be making the rice. The beans should be on medium-high heat as well. I'm using brown rice for this, which requires a longer cooking time than white rice, but you can use white rice. It should cook in half an hour or so. If you're using a stovetop method for cooking the rice, I don't have a lot of advice to tell you, because the last time I did that, I was in college and my rice was terrible and not very good at all. So I always use a rice cooker. You will want to rinse 2.5 cups of rice, and then if you're using white rice, double the amount of water you're using to cook it. So 5 cups of water in the rice cooker. For brown rice, it should be 2.5 cups of water for every cup of rice. So I believe I have like 6.25 cups of water. You'll see it go through. So there's 1 cup, 2 cups, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1/4. I was right. I'm not even that great at math, but I seem to have remembered exactly the right amount of water when I was reviewing this with you. So one thing you also want to do is not put your rice cooker directly below a cabinet, an upper cabinet. Our cabinets are made out of paper. I'm kidding. There's a paper cover on the finish of it, the front of it. So that curled up recently in my apartment, and my husband was able to fix it, but not everyone could do that. So an hour later, I'm checking the beans, and the water has definitely reduced, which is definitely what you want. And the water is not that thick, or the roux, or whatever you call it, aquafaba, is not that thick. It's still kind of watery. Although it has become opaque, like the bean color, that's good. First time I made red beans and rice when I was in college, I don't know what I did wrong, but I didn't cook the beans long enough, and the aquafaba was clear. So it's supposed to be 4 tablespoons of beans, but I kind of just have been using my Cutco basting spoon for a while and just pulling out the quantity you see here. So take about that much beans, smash them up on a cutting board, and return them to the pot. I don't know if I can tell you what this does except make the aquafaba / roux thicker. I've noticed when I make other beans, like pinto beans and chickpeas, and I don't think I've ever made black beans from scratch, that the liquid the beans are in when it's finished cooking is not as thick and like hearty, I guess, as the red beans and rice. So this is a bean and rice recipe that you will not drain the beans. You will keep all that good stuff in there. And then, this isn't necessary, but 2 bay leaves are always part of my recipe. Stir everything up when you can. And then we'll be adding some spices. So salt to taste. All my spices for this recipe are to taste. Black pepper to taste. And mainly because I don't even measure the water sometimes when I'm making this. Creole seasoning to taste. This is from Walmart. It's kind of similar to Slap Ya Mama. And then Louisiana hot sauce to taste. That is also made in my hometown, and I tend to buy it more than Tabasco just because it's a lot cheaper than Tabasco. With Tabasco, you're paying for the name, honestly. So I threw in a little more. It's really just Tabasco, peppers, and vinegar, and water and salt. Stir all that up, and typically the quantity you see here is not very spicy. I almost always have to add more spice, and it's usually my husband doing the taste test and deciding it's not hot enough, and then we add more to the pot. So then get some sausage. I usually buy beef smoked sausage, which contains pork as well, and whatever the single package is. I believe the recipe says a pound, but sometimes you actually get less than that. It's fine. Slice up your sausage and add it to the pot. If you're liking this recipe so far, please like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us reach more viewers, and it's a very good motivator for making more recipes. One thing I will say about this recipe is I always make it on a weekend. A lot of my recipes I do make on the weekdays because it doesn't take very long, but this I like to allow 4 hours to cook this because sometimes the beans, it depends on how high you have the heat, I think, or how vented the lid is. Sometimes they don't cook as fast as they have today. It was a lot quicker than I expected this time around, but usually it takes me about 4 hours to finish this. So I typically make this on a weekend, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then by the time it's done, it's dinner time. So there's the last of the sausage, and then give it a good stir. And for the most part, we still need, like, it's not quite done. We still need, as you can see here, I'm going to call it aquafaba. It's still a little thin. It will get thicker than this. It should get thicker than this. If it doesn't while you're making it, don't let that hurt your feelings. It will get thicker in the fridge. And then I typically like to let it sit uncovered on low for half an hour at a time, and then just keep checking it to see if it is as thick as I want. And this time it was done in about 20 minutes because probably because I measured the water this time. Like usually I don't measure the water. I just pour in the fresh water and that's it. So if you use actually 8 cups, this might not take you a full 4 hours. So it was finished after about 20 minutes with the heat on low and the pot uncovered. You do want it to be uncovered because what you're doing here is letting the steam evaporate, which will cause the liquid in the beans to reduce. So the aquafaba is going to get thick because the water is evaporating. So let's see here. I put too much rice on my plate. I have almost finished this. I ran out of rice. So let me just tell you, try to do maybe a third more beans than rice on your plate. Otherwise, you can do equal quantities. Otherwise, you'll probably run out of rice, and that is a sad thing to do. Here I am adding more hot sauce because we decided it wasn't hot enough. This is seriously one of my favorite recipes, and these days I only cook to film for this channel. So I won't be making this for a while because of that, and that makes me a little sad that it's already gone. Although, credit to my husband, he didn't eat too much of it, so it was mostly me enjoying this and savoring every moment. And I'm going to get a bean and a sausage and rice all in one forkful. And I don't know if I gave you if I gave the thumbs up for this, because I make this all the time and I am aware that it's a good recipe. So you might not see the thumbs up, but just pretend that I gave you 5 or 6, because that's how many I would dole out for this recipe. It's amazing. I really hope you enjoy this. Happy eating, everyone, and I'll see you soon.